In today's sewing lab, I will show you how to make a little miniature pillow that maybe you can use for your stuffed animals or your dolls or your pets. So for this, you'll need a little piece of fabric, a needle, thread, and some stuffing. I have some real stuffing, but if you don't have any real stuffing, you could also use any kind of paper scraps or shredded paper or anything that can fill up and fluff up your pillow. First, we're going to cut up the fabric into the size of the pillow that you want to make. First, you're going to fold your fabric so that the back of your fabric is showing. So this is the front. I'm folding it so that the back side is showing. Now, if you want, you can actually draw the sides of the pillow. Or if you want to just freehand it, that is okay too. And when you draw it or cut it, it's important that you start your measurement from the corner of the loop side of your folded fabric. So this is the flop side. It's not connected. This is the loop side where it's connected together like this. You want to start at one of the corners that is connected with the loop. So I'm going to draw a rectangle like that. Now to cut fabric, if you use your regular craft scissors, it's going to be very challenging because it's not very sharp. So if you're cutting fabric, you can come borrow some fabric scissors. This is a premium tool, so you have to remember to ask for one and return it right away when you're finished. So these are sharper, so they should be able to cut through the fabric that we have. I'm just cutting both sides of the fabric together. One really important thing about fabric scissors is to make sure you only use it for fabric. If you use this on paper or anything else other than fabric or thread, it's going to make your scissors dull and it's not going to work for fabric anymore. So if you're going to borrow fabric scissors, please be responsible about cutting just fabric. So I have my fabric, and if I open it, it's going to be double the size. That is exactly what you need. So I'm going to fold it back so that the back side of the fabric is showing again. Now you'll want to make sure to flip it over and see if the other side is as big. Sometimes you accidentally cut it diagonally or not quite even, and the back side has a smaller fabric, maybe like this. That will not work, so make sure that both folded sides are about the same size. Now you're going to take your pencil or any drawing tool and draw a smaller rectangle about a half an inch away from the edge. You do not have to do this for the loop side right here. The reason is because this is going to be the path that we're going to sew. The loop side is already connected and you don't have to sew this. That's one of the reasons why we cut the fabric like this in a folded loop, is to make it easier on ourselves so that we don't have to sew one of those edges. Now you're going to get your needle and some thread. For your thread, I would recommend cutting it in the length from one hand all the way to my other hand. So I know that you can't see, I'm off screen, but my thread is about the length from one hand to the other hand when my hands are all the way stretched out. So if I put it on the table, it's pretty long. So it's from one hand to the other hand when your hands are all the way stretched out. Now you can put your thread in the needle like we did with our practice. You can use a needle threader if you wish. And we're going to make a knot. And when you thread the needle, with our practice I said you could do double strand or single strand. For this video, I'm going to show you how to do it with a single strand sewing. So we're only going to tie one of the edges of the thread. And twisting it and then pulling it. That's one way to do a knot like this. but if you have a different way you prefer, that's okay. So now I have 2 strands of thread, but I only have a knot on one. Now I'm going to pick up my fabric and then start on the loop side. The first stitch should come pretty close to the edge of the loop side. You can start from the top or the bottom, it does not matter. But just make sure that your fabric is folded with the back side showing and the inside is the actual good side of the fabric. So I'm going to make my first poke and try your best to stay on that line that you drew. So I went down, up. Remember, I'm not going around the edge because that's going to bunch up this fabric. I'm going only up and down. And once you start to get used to going up and down, you could speed up your process by doing this. You can poke up and then down and then up again and then pull. So now I just did a few stitches at once. Make sure that you pull nice and tight, and also make sure that your shorter strand of thread gets pulled through too. Now once you get to the corner, you're going to poke through and you're going to just repeat around the corner. And if you pull your needle too much and the fabric starts to bunch up, all you have to do is run your finger along the edges to make it flat again. Okay, so I went all around the edges, but I didn't go all the way. I left a little hole right here because we need to be able to flip this over, and I'll show you how to do that right now. So now I'm going to open up that gap that we left and tuck that other side in. Then use your finger to poke the corners so that it's a rectangle shape again. And there we go. Now once you have that flipped over, you're going to take your stuffing and you're going to stuff that into that gap. And I know that the thread is hanging here, but just don't worry about it. You'll need a lot more stuffing than you think because it'll be squished down and it kind of shrinks. Now when it's nice and full, you're going to pull that thread so that it's tight again. And then we're going to sew the rest of that gap. If you already tied this thread on here, then you'll just have to get another piece of thread and tie it and start your stitching here. To sew this gap together, you're just going to pinch it with your finger and this time, instead of going up and down, up and down, and up and down, we're going to keep going down. So I just went down, pull. I'm not going to go back from the bottom. I'm going to start from the top again. Yeah, make sure that your needle is going through both of those fabrics. And starting from the top again. And once you're all the way to the corner of that gap, then you're going to do your final knot. So again, you can tie it like a regular knot, which will give you a little bit of a gap and it might come apart a little bit. Or you can go back to your last stitch, poke it through, make a loop like this, pull your needle through and pull, repeat, make a loop, pull your needle through, and pull. And now this is double knotted and that won't come off. I'll show you the other type of ending knot that you could try. So you take your needle, sit it right next to the end, wrap it around 2 or 3 times, hold that down with your nail, pull it through, and then there's a knot right there. I know it's kind of hard to see in the video, but those are some different types of knots you can try in addition to just tying a regular knot. Once you're finished, you can cut off your extra thread, and here's your basic pillow. Now if you want to, you can also add some designs on here by cutting up some different types of fabric and gluing it on top, or trying to sew it on top. Or you could try and tie some yarn on the edges, or add some pom-poms or different types of designs. Now when you're finished, remember that we have to always clean up. Make sure that you return these fabric scissors directly to me, because if you return it to the regular scissor places, people might accidentally use this on paper, and then these will not be sharp and they will not work for fabric anymore. So make sure to return these to me right away. Please make sure that you keep the thread on the needle so that the next person can use this, and also so that this does not get lost inside of our pincushion. So keep the thread on and poke that dot on the pincushion, but don't push it all the way through. Make sure that you have 4 needles and a needle threader before you bring it back to me.